again, the rest of the drum set, I have all internal microphones. On every drum, I have an internal mic and an external mic. And I like to not use too much EQ when I'm recording, so I blend the microphones the way I need it. I get a lot of attack from the internal mics in general, all the tom-toms. And I get also attack and a nice, more ambient sound from the external mic. Some record, I always record everything, but when I send it to a client, for example, then I listen to it and listen to what the music needs. Sometimes I get rid of all the internal microphone tracks and only send external microphone tracks because it's a more traditional sound. If it's a real heavy record or something more electronic, I send sometimes only the internal microphone recordings and those tracks, or all of it, depending on how many tracks the client has at their disposal. But my miking on tom-toms, for example, or snares in general is I point at the center of the drum with the microphone. I don't point at the rim. A lot of traditional miking techniques are you put the microphone quite steep. If this is the drum, you put it towards the edge of the drum, pointing at the drum head. Okay.
Even because it's even more easy to play without hitching it.
Yes, but I point it towards the center of the drum, and I have it at a narrower angle. I get more of a thuddy sound that way. It's less ringy if you point it like this towards the drum. You get more ring. You get a slightly longer note. And I prefer to have a more thuddy sound. I point it exactly at the center of the drum where the stick hits the drum. And so the positioning is fairly traditional for that type of sound, and the angles of the microphones. And I use 2 overhead microphones, one on the right and one on the left side of the kit. Very, hard panning to the max right, max left, of course. And in terms of panorama, which is very important in terms of the miking and bleed, etc., I always mix from the drummer's point of view. And I always, adjust the panorama from my point of view. So I like exactly the right, and the floor tom is on the right. When you look at the speakers, you hear it like you see it when you close your eyes, and pretty much everything is aligned exactly like I have it in space in my studio. I try to replicate that exactly in the panorama. I don't like the toms too far apart. In the panorama, sometimes when you have only 2 toms, one tom's over here, one tom's over here, and it sounds very strange to me. So I try to keep all the drums a little bit closer together in the panorama, and obviously kick and snare mono. Hi-hat is a little bit to the left in my panning, and hard right left on the overheads.
And how about tuning?
Well, that's a very individual and personal subject. I like. And most of the music I play, again, tuning always depends very much on the music you play and the sound you want to get and the response you want to get from the drum. It has a lot to do with the drum heads and the size of the drum. In my case, I use, fairly large sizes. My bass drum's all 24 inches or 26 inches. My rack tom, smallest rack tom is 12 inch, and my floor tom is 18 inch. So I have large drums, and I tune them. I use Emperor heads, which are kind of more rock sounding heads, and I tune them low and thuddy. Like, I love a 70s drum sound, and I try to achieve like an ideal 70s drum sound. Very thuddy, more of a rock sound. I tune the drum heads very low, and the interval between the resonant head and the batter head, depending on the size of the drum and the sound I want, is minimal. So I tune them basically to the same pitch. And then if it feels good, if the drum rings long enough and has not too much sustain, I leave it exactly at the same pitch. If there's too much phasing from the two and too much interference and noise cancellation from the two identically tuned drum heads, then I tune the bottom head a little bit lower. Yes. So my batter head would be a tiny bit higher than the bottom head, usually for response and for the feel. And then I adjust the pitch and the sustain and the timbre and the character of the sound with the bottom head.
now we are here in a clinic in Rome, and you are a very followed clinician, educator. You also created a sort of a camp, a
Yes.
drum camp, the Big Drum Bonanza.
Mhm.
You want to talk to the people about this project that you have
Yes.
since it's a few years now.
Yes, the Big Drum Bonanza has been around, I think, it's the 6th or 7th year this year. I started doing camps more than 10 years ago. I have two camps. I have the Thomas Lang Drumming Boot Camp, which has been around for about 10 years. And this is a traveling educational event. I've been all over the world with the Thomas Lang Drumming Boot Camp, and I have hosted 112 camps all over the world, from Shanghai to Tokyo, Moscow, New York, Los Angeles, all over the world. And it's been a very, very interesting and wonderful journey for me to travel and organize these camps and hopefully inspire students. And the other camp I have, and the Thomas Lang Drumming Bootcamp is just me. I teach a limited group of students for 3 days or 5 days, very intensely, 8 hours per day. We all play together. They work with me, and they play with me all day long for 8 hours every day. They all have individual practice drum sets, and I have an acoustic or electronic kit, and we play together. I show them exercises, and I create a curriculum specifically for each camp and targeted towards each individual student at the Thomas Lang Drumming Bootcamp. And then I have the Big Drum Bonanza event, which is an annual event every July in Los Angeles. And I invite my favorite drummers, whoever is a current and inspiring drummer to me. I invite them to also teach as guest artists and guest teachers at the Big Drum Bonanza. So I usually have between 6 or 7 drummers, world famous drummers, teaching also a fairly small group of students. And this is 1 week long, the Big Drum Bonanza. It's hosted at a very beautiful hotel in California, in Los Angeles. And we have several rooms there for master classes, for clinics. We also have special events and performances at Drum Channel in California, in Oxnard, which is very close. And we host DW factory tours, and there is, of course, a lot of music and concerts in Los Angeles every day, so students can go out and see drummers perform. There's jam sessions, there's one-on-one lessons, which is very rare, that Virgil Donati or Chris Coleman or people like that do one-on-one lessons. So it's very unique and happens really only at the Big Drum Bonanza like that, in that kind of scope. And it's been a really wonderful event, and I've hosted, I think this is the 7th year this year, and it's been a wonderful journey. And I've also started a competition along with the camp called the Big Drum Bonanza Theme Song Play-Along Contest, which several, many Italian entries arrive every year for that. And the first winner was Italian, actually. And that's become a very big worldwide contest as well. And if you're interested, this year it's happening between the 5th and the 9th of July in Los Angeles. So Big Drum Bonanza 2017, July 5th to the 9th in LA.
One, you are from Austria. You're born in Austria, so you're European. You live in Los Angeles. You travel around the world. How do you see today's drummer scene, European drummer scene, compared to the USA, to America?
I think it's still the same. European drummers are very much influenced and inspired by American players primarily. I think in general, the biggest difference, I think, between European drummers and American drummers, or musicians in general, is American musicians are more intuitive, they are more fearless, they are more energetic, I think it has a lot to do with music culture, traditions in America, and exposure to certain styles of music, like R&B, soul, blues, rock, etc. And I think European musicians, or drummers specifically, are more intellectual, more rational about, and more methodical in their practicing, and more cerebral in their approach to playing. Have more concepts in their mind, and plan their playing ahead more, and those are the most fundamental differences, I think. And I think there is very little sort of counter inspiration. I don't think many American drummers are much influenced by European players at all. It's only very much one-sided. European players like American drummers and draw all their inspiration, information from that scene, and not in return. But I personally like both, and I try to combine those two elements also in my playing. I try to be intuitive and improvise and play with high energy, but also have more intellectual concepts in my playing, and try to find a balance between the two things.
Anyone who impressed you? Any name of young drummers?
Many young drummers. You mean European or European drummers that impressed me, like Gergo Borlai from Hungary, and US drummers, recent drummers that impressed me, Mark Juliana, for example. I think is a wonderful player.
Well, thanks a lot for being with us, Planet Drum. It was a real pleasure to meet you again.
Thank you so much for coming.
And we'll wait for you. We'll try to be in Los Angeles and come and visit you.
Come to LA, please do. Absolutely, yes. I'd
Thanks.
love to have you. Thank you. Good to see you again. Thanks.